When you do a webinar, the first part that I focus on when it comes to achieving my goal of my webinar is the introduction. And that makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, just like all stories have a beginning, middle, and an end, all webinars have an introduction section to them. But here's what a lot of people don't understand. Do you know what the purpose is of the introduction? You know what the absolute most important thing you must do in the first 5 to 15 minutes of your webinar if you want to ever have any hope of creating impact and for creating revenue for yourself? The most important thing is authority. That is the number one thing that you have to strive. You have to instill confidence in your audience that you are somebody who can help solve a problem that they face. Now, here's the interesting thing about authority. Authority can be manufactured. It doesn't have to be necessarily real, but real or not, if it doesn't exist in the introduction, it doesn't matter what you say afterwards. Nobody will listen to you. The joke I always tell my clients is this. If you have a broke uncle who's been divorced 6 times, who's about 150 pounds overweight, and he's giving you relationship advice and financial advice and all this other kind of stuff, you're not going to listen to him. Now, most of you actually have that uncle, me included, right? Now, here's the deal. He might have the answer. He very well may know the exact answer to your problem, but you will discount his expertise because he doesn't have the proper authority. Nobody knows how to create authority. I have systematically structured a way to use authority, and I can transfer authority to you just like that, breaking down things like results of yourself and others, positioning yourself on par with their heroes, very easy to do, utilizing local or global or other types of celebrities and results from other people, and even the things that you focus on in the introduction and how you present them. All of these things are more important than the content of what you say in the introduction. And they're easier too, but you need authority. You need to create commitment. If you don't get people to say, yes, I'm willing to do blank if you show me blank, you will probably lose. Why? Because you haven't set the tone in your webinar to make it an active event. Instead, you've made it a passive event, okay? I was really bad in school at Iowa State, for example, or any institution because you sat there and just learned, quote unquote, learn by sitting there and somebody telling you stuff. But a webinar, the best part about a webinar is it's interactive or has the ability to be interactive, can be construed to be interactive. And if you have that, get commitment. A lot of people pretend that people are walking in with a blank slate when they go into their introduction. They're like, just tell me what I need to know and then I'll evaluate it. But that doesn't happen. Think about all the troubles you've faced in the last year, all the challenges you think. People are coming on to your webinars just having fights with their spouses. They're coming on to your webinars not having a good night's sleep before. They're coming on to your webinars worried about other things in their life, and they're not totally there. And more important, they have biases, oftentimes incorrect, related to whatever subject matter that you're discussing, no matter what it is you're talking about. You know, for example, if you're teaching people how to lose weight, there are certain people believe that it's all about calories in, calories out. And if you disagree with that, you have to make that known in the introduction. Otherwise, anything you try to put in their head and the introduction will be kicked out. Now, here's the beautiful thing. And then there's hope and then there's intrigue, where you foster hope for a better tomorrow and you create intrigue so you glue them in and get their full attention. And these are all a matter of technique. These are technique based. The hardest part is knowing what elements to put in the introduction and coming up with examples that you can model for your introduction. I have done all that. I have already figured that out. And I'll show you later exactly where you can go to get those things. But here's the most important thing, that if you don't get anything else, get this. This is the game changer. You can take average information, stuff that people could find for free on the internet, on YouTube or anywhere else. And if you follow this structure, you will have a greater impact. You will create a more likeliness of them to change their behavior as a result of your presentation than anybody else can in their market. And you say, Jason, well, why is that? It's because it's not what you're saying. It's how you're saying it, what order you're revealing it in, and how you have impact. The information on its own is not that important. It's the least important thing. What's most important is how you set it up, how you frame it, how you reveal it. And that's what we focus on in the introduction. The idea of the introduction is for somebody to say in 5 to 10 minutes, this is somebody who truly understands what I'm going through and has a solution for me. Now, here is my recommendation to get you started. What you want to do is sit down and ask yourself the following questions, write out the answers, and then puzzle piece together your introduction. So question number 1 is authority related. How will you show them you're someone they should listen to and follow? That's very simple. Any one of you could come up with the answer to that. Now you're going to do it on purpose as opposed to hoping it happens on accident, right? Creating commitment. What are things that if they agree to them would make them more likely to buy what you're selling at the end of the webinar? How are you going to create commitment? What are the things they could agree to? Jot those down. Objections. What are the key things related to what you're offering at the end, and how can you address them directly or indirectly in your introduction? Fostering hope for the future. What in their life is going to be better once they realize the solution that you offer? Mystery and intrigue. What are cliffhangers that you can bring up at the beginning of the webinar that you can and will reveal during the webinar? You just sit down and you write these out. And then when you're done, you have the core elements that you could put together. This is the approach of, Abraham Lincoln says, if I have 8 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first 6 hours sharpening my axe. So many people think a webinar is just something that you get hit with a bolt of creativity and then you sit down there and write it out. It doesn't work that way. What works that way is a little bit of preparation by saying this element, this element, this element. You can literally go through these step by step when you're starting. Now, these won't get you to the $100 million mark, of course, right? But they can easily get you to the $1 million mark utilizing nothing like this for each section, where you take the puzzle pieces and start putting them together. Quick question before I move on to content. Do you feel like this is something that you could see yourself doing? Even if you did a little bit about this, do you feel like if you did this at 10%, you're already head and shoulders above who else is out there trying to do webinars, even if you've never done a webinar before? These are the shortcuts. These are the treasure maps that you can follow with authority, commitment, objections, hope, and mystery. It took me years to figure out what are the best 5 elements in the introduction and how to best approach them. And now I'm handing them over you today. Now they're worthless if you don't do anything with them. Okay, so make a promise to me and more importantly to yourself that you're actually going to use this. And does this work beyond just webinars? It works everywhere where you need to communicate and persuade. We just use it more often in webinars than anywhere else because that's where the money is.